We took them off because we thought they were going to paint this room with the third floor thing, and I don't think they did. So now we just don't have pictures. And we got rid of all the pictures. So
Got rid of them or just took them down?
well, we surplused all of the pictures that were out there, but they grabbed all these ones too. So now we don't have them.
I'm good, thank you. Are you good?
Okay, well, it is 4:00. It is still 4:00 and it's time to get started on our February 3rd City Council agenda. This is the 4 PM work session. Welcome everyone who's here, either in person or online. First item on the agenda, let the record reflect that all council members are present here today. First thing we have is to review our meetings agenda. And I guess you've all had a chance to review that. Are there any questions about any item on the agenda?
Chair, I do have a question for the I forget which agenda item it is. 6. Just wanted to reflect that I've received a lot of emails and comments on social media just about the process of chair nominations and vice chair nominations. And so I'm curious if anyone else would like to just talk about if they've received any feedback from the community and potential in tabling that process, or if we want to explore that topic now.
Any thoughts on that?
I just share that, council rules and norms spell out the process by which leadership is elected, and that's been followed. And we've known this was coming, and I think we just follow through. I think that I will say that I'm troubled by the way that the community was stirred up by this. I think there was a lot of misinformation and a lot of hyperbole that really didn't apply to this particular exercise. And I think that we probably will have an opportunity in the meeting to clarify exactly what is and what isn't the process for electing council leadership. And I'm fine with it.
Has there ever been in the past, as we're new to this, can we have public comment before the election process?
I'm going to take the opportunity just to share my perspective on this. We all get to elect our state leadership, for example, or our federal representatives that go to Washington, D.C. as the electorate. And likewise, here in Ogden, as city council candidates, we put ourselves in front of the public, and the public votes for us. And if we're fortunate enough to gather the necessary votes, we're elected city council members. I didn't get a chance to vote on, now his name is going to
Schultz.
Mr. Schultz as Speaker of the House, or Mr. Adams as the President of the Senate. They are elected by their peers in that relationship to lead their respective organizations. And the model is the same here. We were elected, and then we as a group get to choose who leads the council. And the public doesn't have a role. We get to determine what the council office looks like too, because it's our office, right? The general public didn't have input into who was going to replace Janine Eller-Smith as the executive director. That was controlled by the council office and council leadership and the city council. The process, the applications, the review committee that looked at all of that stuff. And then ultimately we hired Glenn to replace Janine without input from the community. That's our prerogative. And I think it's our prerogative to choose those that would like to lead city council by a majority. We'll all have a vote on who leads city council, and the democracy is in that, in my opinion. And the whole idea that this is a public process, I think the general public and social media was led to believe that today, and they're just it's an incorrect, um, understanding.
Chair, I think I would just add into that. Again, going back to the rules and norms, and Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, but every year we have an opportunity to review those as council members, to take a look at those and make any adjustments that we as a council feel is appropriate at that time. And so if we have 4 council members that feel like the public process ought to be involved, or we ought to have that, then that would be adopted in the new set of rules and norms. And that's how I think that process would move forward in that space. And I agree with Councilmember Graff. I had some fun interactions back and forth with a couple members, and are suggesting, should this be a ballot initiative? And one answer was like, well, yeah, I think the public should have a say or some ability to influence or have their voices heard. And my feeling back is that's true. And you've elected 7 people that those, and we're held accountable for our votes. And if it's not acceptable, we run again and we're not elected, that's that. So I always feel like that. I feel like, yes, the public is involved in every decision that's made by the council because they elected 7 council members to represent them. And it's on us to hopefully, listen to that and make those decisions. So I guess that would be what I'd add there.
If I could chime in also, I mean, I have been the target of most of the social media stuff, but I appreciate you defining it as it was, misinformation, very little truth involved in any of that stuff, but this body is designed to be nonpartisan. We have always, and our rules and norms reflect that nonpartisan feel to that. Never in my experience with this body has it ever really even been partisan. It does, not that people don't have their opinions and their views that may reflect a certain leaning, but the way the function of this body works is that if a council member makes an initiative, we make sure that gets the light of day, has the opportunity to get traction or not, whatever, depending on how well it's received by this body, and then moves forward. I was chair in the past, and that was exactly what I did as the chair, is to make sure that those things got the light of day. Never, ever, ever did I say, no, let's not put that on the agenda. I don't like it. That never happened because I don't believe that. I don't believe that's the way to work. I think we need to strive to keep this a body that represents all voices in the city, not just ones that agree with a certain side. And that seems to be what's been going on as of late. If you don't agree with this side, there's something wrong with you. You're evil. You're bad. And that's not the way we have worked in the past. It was certainly not my intention to work that way in the future. And I just leave it at that.
Councilmember Rich, I appreciate you bringing that up and back to the rules and norms and our ability to look into that as and Councilmember Graff, as you reflected on the fact that we do not have any say, we don't have a vote as to who the Speaker of the House is at the state. We do have the ability to share our voices and our opinion. And as a representative, I just look to listen to those voices and hear those voices in opportunities that we can to make decisions. And so I think that's where this was brought up, and I just look forward to thinking about it in those terms.
Okay, one other. Oh, go ahead.
I haven't chimed in on this and I would like to.
Okay, fair enough.
So irregardless of who is a candidate and who is not a candidate, we are called upon to make decisions that are not going to be popular at times in this community, whether with someone, it may be a housing authority issue, it may be zoning, it may be the chickens issue. And I don't mean to make light of anything, but for some people, they feel so adamantly and so strong about certain positions that they want to speak out about it. And that is our right. And I respect that and I honor that and I recognize that. I think the timing on this is hurtful. and it could have been handled a little bit differently, but you know what? Those people have a right to speak, and I appreciate them for what they say because they represent a perspective that we need to listen to. My point in all of this is that I just agree with Councilman Graff and with Councilman Ritchie that our process we have followed, and it's been something that we have worked towards and that we have planned on. And I don't know that it needs to be a public issue. This is an issue that we handle internally, and whether there's disagreement or not, or whether there's an election or not, I think that's for us to decide, and we can take all those voices that we hear into account and make the best decision that we can. And I propose that we go ahead and do that today.
You did ask a question I think there's an answer to. You asked if we've always done it this way. And the answer really is no. We haven't always done it this way. There was, and the timing might be a little foggy in my mind, but probably 10 years ago or so, we used to do a straw poll, and it happened in a work session. And then we came out and announced. So you never knew who voted for who or what happened, and it just was not very transparent. And we as a council decided that wasn't so good. So that's why we came up with this one. And so now the vote happens in the chambers, and everybody's vote is on the record, and you know, like it or not, you have to own your vote, where it didn't used to happen. It just wasn't that way before. So things do change from time to time, but you know, our process has been pretty good for the last 10 years. And I think it's legal. It meets the intent. You know, this legislative body does elect its leadership. It isn't a ballot initiative, and people are entitled to have an opinion about it, and they've been pretty free at expressing them over social media and email. So, and there's not an attempt to silence them. They've had their, you know, that voice has been had.
Mr. Chair, Glenn has, I'm just convinced it must be our extrasensual perception that's going on here, but I think Glenn has a comment. Is
No,
that on our rules
I
and
just,
norms?
I appreciate that. I was just going to add that, yeah, to Councilmember Hires' point, I went into the Wayback Machine and got, you know, the rules and norms from when we did do it with the straw poll. And I just was going to say, I'm happy to meet with anybody to talk about the history of this. We haven't always done it this way. We haven't always done it at this time. We've explored all kinds of options. We're in contact with other council staff and other cities in the state, and they do it differently. So there's a lot of different ways we can do it, and I'm more than happy to sit down with anybody and explore options, things we've talked about, reasons we did it this way versus another way. So there's lots of ways to do it, and I'm more than happy to sit down with anybody and give them the history of how we got to now and some of the other things that we've talked about.
If I can just make one last comment, and that is, I think anybody wanting to step forward and serve in leadership, I respect and admire that effort. And when I ran, again, I felt like there was an obligation to really try to understand every member of the council on every issue, and so it really required a lot of communication and setting aside, you know, maybe what I personally felt like was the direction to go. And for those that are elected as leadership, they need to expect that they're going to be held to that level of accountability with that. And if, as council members, we feel like there is an issue being pushed, they should be willing to be called on it. And that's okay, because that's how we work together as a council. And that's why I think having this process the way it is it's working, and I support it.
Okay. Enough about that. So we move on. All right, on the item number 5, you just a few minutes before 4 received an email from Glenn to explain, and I'm going to let Glenn talk about it because it's fresh in your mind and you know the technical words to use. So
Sure. So we've been working this afternoon to try to get some language together for some kind of a potential agreement between the city and OHA. It was felt that council members may want to have some sort of an agreement finalized or formalized to address some of the safety issues with the potential rezone. And we do have some timing issues. There are some options if you want to, say, do a conditional overlay with a development agreement. That's a little tricky to do on the fly, right? It's on the agenda tonight. Those can be pretty complicated. We don't have those documents ready. And so there's been some discussion back and forth about approving or giving you the option to approve the rezone with direction that the administration and OHA enter into an agreement to deal with some of the safety issues. So that's the language that I sent you all. It's just motion language. If you choose to do that, Mr. Simpson's going to talk about it more if he wants to now or just in the meeting, however you want to do that. As far as the technical process, what we like to do if you want to make a change with the motion is do kind of a two-step versus a one-step motion. So you would make a motion to amend the ordinance the way you wanted to. That would be a motion, second voice vote, and then you would have a roll call on an amended motion or an amended ordinance rather than trying to do everything all together. So that's the language that was sent out. It's a little cleaner that way to do it in two steps. That way everybody kind of knows how it's going or what's agreed to.
Everybody
So,
understand that?
If you want to have more discussion on the agreement, I think Joe can talk about that. You saw the document that I sent out last night that had some of those agreement points in it. So that's kind of where we are right now. If you want to talk about it more now, we certainly can. If you want to wait till the meeting, we can do that as well.
Or we could do both.
Or both.
Your choice. Do you wanna hear it now?
I just have questions, and so maybe we could speak to that. Is this step necessary, having the discussions being had with administration, and we're confident in moving forward and just passing the rezone as is, and leaving that to the administrative side and Ogden Housing Authority to work with that?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. You don't have to do this. You don't have to give the direction for this agreement. You can just do the rezone and administration can do what they do on their side. So you have that option just to do a clean rezone without this additional language. But this was felt that if you wanted more direction or clearer direction, that this would be an option to give direction to the administration enter into this agreement.
Councilmember Lopez.
I would love to, if you can support, make an agreement between the Ogden Housing Authority in writing. So because I really looking forward for that. I believe in the administration, some change has been put in place as well. And as a neighborhood, we are very grateful, but with Ogden Housing Authority, I don't have that the same good faith. I don't want to put it in good faith, so I prefer something in writing. Thank you.
That's what I was gonna say is this absolutely does make it mandatory. And if you don't do this, then we're just kind of hoping they'll do it. They probably will, but it is still just a hope. And my dad used to teach me hope is not a strategy.
And sorry,
Go ahead.
I just don't want to put in a late process. I really looking forward to will apply for grants or whatever. So if we can work quickly, that will be amazing. Thank you.
Mayor, you're here to weigh in.
Sure, just really quickly, thank you for that. I wanted to say that I'm in consultation with legal that we felt the best thing would be to have a approval condition or conditional approval on the factors that are laid out in the presentation. And that way, otherwise, once you approve the zoning, then there's really no accountability structure. And so what we'll agree to do is work with the Housing Authority after a conditional motion and have an agreement with them to follow through on the items that have been discussed.
Okay,
So I have a question real
Yeah,
quick there.
definitely.
That before we would move forward on this to have the petitioner Ogden Housing Authority to come in to speak with us about the 4 items in this amended motion. And just coming at it from my background and working in property management, more times than not, you do have to perform a background check on an applicant. And then the Good Landlord Program, I am curious with however many rentals are surrounding that potential project, also participate in the Good Landlord Program, which would follow suit with what Chair Lopez is saying in just, I believe, like neighborhood security is one of your primary concerns for your neighborhood. And then also being able to have time to look over the specifications of the Good Landlord Program.
Yes, please.
I can answer one from the Good City Good Landlord Program. One of my of my neighbors are under that program because I helped them to go through. So yes, we have neighborhoods with that program.
As far as like the surrounding blocks that would be part of the fabric of the neighborhood as well. Do we know how many other rentals are in the neighborhood that participate in the Good Landlord Program as well? Or is it just the immediate area walking distance of the project?
Right now in the median area, I can assure you I have 2 neighbors that are under that program.
Okay, so we can look that up because as you said, things in writing are better than verbal agreements.
Okay, we good? All right. All right. Next item on our agenda is the Ogden Dinosaur Park Museum Foundation Annual Report. Sarah, welcome.
There we go. Green means go. Okay. Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Meir, and I am officially over a year, so I'm no longer the new executive director of the Dinosaur Park. I can just say I'm the executive director of the Dinosaur Park. And I'm excited to present our 2025 annual report. I have the agenda here. We'll talk about our leadership, attendance, events, sponsorships, marketing, completed projects, and future projects. I do have to give credit to my now past chair, Shane Line, for this beautiful presentation that I copied from last year. This is our leadership team. We've grown one more director this year. We had added an administrative director, Stephanie Knight, to our team. And at the end of this month, we're adding an education and development director to our leadership team as well. To lead our education department and help support me with our development so that we can continue to grow our funding. We have an official new executive board as of today, so this is now out of date as of about an hour ago, but that's our board and board of directors for 2025 though. Our 2025 attendance, we achieved just over 100,000 total guests, which was down slightly from 2024, which I was a little bummed about. But for those of you who knew, we have a new playground, and that playground was out of commission for April, May, and June. And guess what? Our busiest months are normally April, May, and June. So that I estimated, I did an average of the last few years, and we lost probably about 10,000 visitors, so we would have beaten last year. So I'm excited for 2026 to have that playground in place and accessible. Yes, if you know, you know. That was a fun journey, but here's a little breakdown of our adults, children, field trips, our ramps, and reciprocals. So our reciprocals are like the Nature Center, Union Station, other museums that if you have a pass to their museum, you can come to ours for free as well. And then our members and our special events. And if anyone has any questions along the way, just yell at me. For our 2025, we hosted 15 events at the park. So that means some other event came and had it at the park, which was really, really fun for me to work with so many fun community partners. We had 5 produced events of our own, 2 educational series. We did 4 STEMness Day camps. For those of you who follow me on social media, you'll know that on the 3rd day of my first year at the Dinosaur Park, our education building flooded, which is where we normally hold our camps. And so we had to get a little creative and hold them in a different way. So that was what STEMness Day was. And then we've also had our weekly toddler time and our monthly sensory nights, which I really love and appreciate. The first Friday of every month, we dim the lights, we turn off all of our sounds and animatronics. We have headphones and things like that for those that have sensory issues to borrow if they need them. We have a quiet room that has where people can decompress even if they're still a little overstimulated in the park, which I really love having this night, and we want to do more of those kinds of nights or days, obviously. I wanted to highlight this because we were tracking how many baskets, because we get a lot of people asking us like, hey, can you donate a basket for this gala? Can you donate a basket for this golf tournament, for this giveaway? So I asked our gift shop manager to track this so that I would have a good number to report right now to all of you. And we supported 135 nonprofits in the state of Utah this year. That in conjunction with our sponsorships. So we sponsored the Ogden Downtown Alliance Car Show, the Farmers Market, and all the rest of those events listed there with monetary donations, which all added up to over $37,000 in monetary and in-kind donations for the year to other nonprofits in our community. Sorry, I'm running out. Go. Here are some fun stats from our marketing and community outreach. We still have a 4.7 star rating on Google with over 4,500 reviews. From 2 years ago when we presented this, because we've updated these slides now for a second time, we started with 400 subscribers on our YouTube channel in 2024. And now we are so close to 70,000. I put it in there like wishful thinking because I think we're at like 69,412. So if you are not a subscriber, please help us hit 70,000 so that Ben can, celebrate. And then the next one is 100,000. But apparently we get a plaque. We're very excited. Which is also monetized. I think we brought in $2,200 through our YouTube channel this year, which is really exciting. We are the top venue with the Get Out Pass in Utah. Thanks, Shane, for bringing us to that. And some other exciting things, we were awarded the Utah Office of Tourism grant so that we can bring more visitors to Ogden, which I'm really excited about. We participated in 15 community outreach tabling events and collaborated with some area influencers for our events. I wanted to highlight some of our financial wins this year. Our admissions revenue, even though we had less attendees than we had planned on, our admissions revenue was up 19%. Thank you to City Council for approving our admissions increase last year. That helped us catch up a little bit and really keeps us more in line with what we offer in the other museums in their community and around the state. It puts us in better line with that. Because we raised our daily passes, but we kept our membership sales, our membership pricing the same, it made those more attractive. So our membership sales were up 31%. Our events and park rentals, like I talked about, having other community organizations come and host their events at our park. That revenue was up 32%. This one I'm really excited about, and I can't wait to show the board this one. Our donations were up 326%. That is largely in part from a grant from Ogden City. And we hosted our first annual T-Rex golf tournament, which was a pretty good success, and I'm excited for year 2 on that one. And so our total revenue was up 25%.
What was that golf tournament
at Mount Ogden, of course. Yes, it was at Mount Ogden because at El Monte, I would have been a closer commute for sure. But I'm greedy and I wanted to have more holes for more golfers. So, so we went, it's still Ogden City, supporting local, but it was awesome. It was really a lot of fun.
Less balls in your parking lot from.
We 100%. We have a huge bucket where we're going to make some kind of dinosaur out of those golf balls. So stay tuned for that reveal because it'll be pretty good. And expense wise, we reduced a couple of categories, which is always exciting. Our maintenance, we reduced that by 29% this year because we have a maintenance director in place that is doing preventative maintenance instead of catching up maintenance. So we're really excited about all the things that he's been really proactive about. Plus, we had some grants that we could spend and use for those categories, which helped. And our gift shop expenses were down 34%. We've made some really great partnerships with local vendors, which doesn't involve shipping, and have some like longstanding partnerships, and just we're a little smarter with our purchases. So I'm really excited about that. I did want to highlight our payroll is up. It's up 49% over last year. But I'm actually kind of proud of that because I lasted a whole year, so we had to pay for a director for a whole year. We added an administrative director, and she's over our finances, and anyone in nonprofit knows how crucial that is. We were able to complete our 2023 and 2024 audits, so now we're back on track and in line with those. We raised our minimum wage, which means we raised everyone's wages to get them closer to that livable wage here in Ogden, and we backfilled some missing rules that were pretty crucial to our success. So we were able to take some hats off of people's heads that were wearing, 5 or 6 hats. Now they only have to wear 2. So I'm really excited actually about that increase. Obviously, that means more fundraising, more stress for me, but I'm happy to have that stress if we can do that. We completed so many projects. I'm sure I'm missing some, and I kind of lumped them together because it would have taken a long time. But like I said, we finished our All Abilities Playground and the reinstallation of the ground covering so that it is accessible now, which is pretty important for an All Abilities Playground. We finished our ramp infrastructure grant, so that's how we got to reduce our maintenance costs. Like we were able to spend, I could quote the mayor, other people's money from his thing the other day. That was really funny. But we were able to use those funds to help upgrade our lighting, upgrade our electrical, pave our paths so that they are accessible, right? We have this accessible playground. The whole park needs to be accessible as well. We upgraded our electrical throughout the park, inside and outside. If you came to Dinos in the Snow, you got to see our new volcano, which is really exciting. We updated our irrigation so that it's more efficient, so that we use less water and have greener grass, which is really nice. We painted tons of sculptures, and it was really fun because we partnered with Ninth Muse Art Academy and had young artists come out and help us do that, which was so fun. Oh, and your daughter came and did it, which was so fun. I loved having that partnership. That was really cool. And our landscaping, lots of landscaping completed, which is very important. And then this is our, I think that's my final slide, grants and future projects. So we were hard at work getting some new grants this year. We got one from Rocky Mountain Power. We got an FHLB loan from Wasatch Peaks Credit Union Foundation and the Bank of Utah, which we'll be putting into use in our new education building that we are starting remodeling because we finally signed the contract. I didn't get to tell you that. Yay. We got the Utah Office of Tourism grant to bring visitors here to Ogden from out of state. And we utilized Ogden City Capital Improvement grant to upgrade our electrical. And future projects. So we've applied for some more grants through RAMP to add shade to our new playground because it's a big, beautiful playground. But in the middle of July at 2 p.m., it is scorching. It is really hot. So we thought about shade for all of the parents. Like we have beautiful umbrellas for all the parents sitting at the tables, but the kids are in the scorching sun, which they usually don't mind, but we'd like to cool it down a little bit. And we're thinking about making it more permanent so that if it's raining, snowing, it's a year-round playground then, because they need to burn their energy year-round. We also have a new T-Rex coming, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And we're going to keep focusing on our sculpture upkeep and repair so that we stay ahead of that. Our hatchery is almost done. And so that'll be really exciting for those of you that don't know about that building. That's where we're going to be able to build our own dinosaurs. So that's why we call it the hatchery. We'll be able to build our own sculptures so that we can replace those and grow the park without it costing so much money. And it'll be pretty cool. We'll partner with Weber State and OTech to have some internships and things with 3D printing and CNC machines and CAD design. And Anyway, it's going to be really cool. We're working on a new roof and then some new shelter around the park. And I think that's it. Thank you so much. I tried to keep it to 15 minutes. So if you have any questions.
Any questions for Sarah? Thank you so much for
Yeah, just
taking care of that.
I'll toss a congratulations your way. You know, a year ago, we talked about fee increases for maintenance and to bring people's wages up to par with the remainder of the community. And congratulations on the work that you did. It looks like the financial move has paid off with meeting your goals that you stated that day. So good work, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair. I just want to congratulate Sarah on a first year, and a great year it was too. You hit the ground running, and you had a lot of vision and foresight, and just proved to be sensational for your first year there. We look forward to a lot more
I know.
coming
Get
up in
ready.
the
It's
future.
gonna
And
be
we love
fun.
the vision that you have that you
Yeah.
shared with us today as well. So thank you. Great job.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sarah, really appreciate it. And it was a wonderful opportunity for my daughter to come and paint those
Paint dinosaurs.
dinosaurs with the Ninth Music Academy. I
Yeah.
appreciate you reaching out to them and
Oh,
working with them. And I'm just grateful that this is part of our community. I know as a young father, very tired father with kids that one kid in particular that didn't sleep very well, our Saturday morning coffee while
Yeah.
they went and played, and
Well,
my wife and I
could
got an
sit in the
opportunity, Desi and I
shade.
got an opportunity to talk, was vital for our
There you go.
sanity at the
That's
time.
so
So I
good.
really appreciate
I know. I'll
what
never
you do for
Thank
us.
you. I loved talking to Sarah at Night Muse. And when I said, hey, I want you to come and paint dinosaurs, she thought that the students were going to come and sit with easels and paint dinosaurs. And I was like, no, paint the dinosaurs. And they all lost their minds. They were so excited. It was great.
I just wanted to just chime in as well and appreciate this presentation. And I don't know that we've seen in the past that the sponsorships and support and all those cross supporting of other nonprofits and everything. So I love to see that. And it's really kind of what makes Ogden special is everyone kind of chips in with each other and tries to help support. And just seeing that, impact is awesome. So.
Thank you.
And further congratulations of increasing payroll.
I know.
Specifically
I know,
the
right?
livable wages for
Yeah.
all, so we
Yeah.
keep our talent in Ogden and working for amazing organizations. So thank you for your work on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I want to share with you community feedback.
Yeah.
Someone told me they visit the dinosaur park and they felt like a new dinosaurs, like no one was dying inside. And I want to say congratulations for that. So I know you are a hard worker. I know you for so many years. So congratulations. Keep doing it.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you for what you do. The dinosaur park is absolutely one of the jewels in the crown that is Ogden. So, and you've done a great job this past year.
Thank
And
you.
hitting that 1 year mark is kind of a big deal.
I know. Oh, all right. Year 2. Let's go.
Yep. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Next item on our agenda is the 2024-2025 annual comprehensive financial report. I have Coralie somewhere. Here she comes.
Very interesting. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Welcome, Coralie.
Thank you. All right. For those that don't know me, I'm Coralie Jensen. I'm the Assistant Finance Director for the city. I am going to present on our ACFR is what we call it. It's Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. So if I use that acronym, that's what that means. Since we have new council members, I'm going to do a really quick overview of what this is, and it may be a refresher for council members that have been on the council for a little bit. The ACFR is the annual audited financial statements, and it provides a picture of the city's financial condition. It is prepared using government reporting standards, and then it's audited independently. We don't hire the auditors, the city council actually does, and they're the ones that have that contract with HBME. And then if you were to go into this presentation, these there are links on the side that will take you to where the ACFR is found, the ACFR, and then also the single audit and compliance reports as well. The ACFR is organized, there's an intro section, which is just an overview. There's a management discussion and analysis in that section that we go into more detail about why there were changes. It's more specific to the city and not so much the numbers. And they put it at the beginning because people are more likely to read that and they may fall asleep by the time they get to the financial section. So, and then it also provides the context for the financial section that follows. In the financial section is where you'll find the independent auditor's report, and then the financial statements and notes explaining those financial statements. And then we also prepare a statistical section, which is 10 years of financial and economic information. In the ACFR, we report on governmental enterprise and governmental enterprise and internal services. The governmental are the core services that help keep the city running. Public safety, parks and rec, management services, and that's usually supported by taxes or other general revenue. Enterprise, those are operated more like a business. Those are your airports, golf fund, your utility funds. And then internal services, those provide services to other city departments. So your fleet and facilities, IT, risk management, and those costs are shared across programs. You'll also notice as we come to you with budget openings throughout the year, that will increase revenue in fleet and facilities, increase the expense to offset that revenue, and then we'll also do an offsetting entry in whatever fund they'll be servicing. And so you'll see it twice, and it's because it is an internal service fund. Any questions? Please stop me if there are. So the activities are reported in two separate ways. There's citywide reporting, which combines governmental and enterprise funds. And in the PDF that's out on the website, the government-wide reporting is on, I believe it's page it's on page 42. And that provides a more long-term view of assets and liabilities. And then we do it reporting on a fund level, where we split out your general fund, the CIP fund, and then on the enterprise side, we split out those funds as well. And those separate resources by purposes and highlight the individual fund activity and balances. And then I wanted to do a brief overview of fund balance because I'll show you a history of fund balance here in a few slides. That fund balance reflects resources that are carried forward from prior years, and not all of it can be used for new uses. A portion of it can be restricted by law, grant, or it can be designated for a specific purpose. So any questions on what the ACFR is?
Any questions?
Or general, was that a good refresher for those that have been here?
That's a good refresher for us who have been here.
Yeah. So, and then as part of our audit, we have a fraud risk assessment that our auditors also look at. It looks at a variety of things that really test and help mitigate fraud in the city. And there's separation of duties. It looks at education of management team, ethical behavior commitments. We've set up a fraud hotline and audit committee. The two things on our fraud risk assessment that we did not get a score on this year and had to mark 0 were the formal internal audit function. We do have things that we do to mitigate that, but setting up a whole separate internal audit function would require setting up a whole new staff. And so internally, we just do, we try to do as much as we can for not having that function in the city. And then the other thing was there is a state auditor training for governing body members, which are you, that has to be completed by each city council member during their term served. I've provided a link again on the side in this presentation. Your staff does have the presentation, of course, and they can send it out. But in about May, we'll ask Glenn for, I think you get a certificate saying, yes, you've completed it. we'll ask him for those certificates and who has them, and we'll keep those on file for our auditors to then audit when they come out and look at this questionnaire. So I can't require you to do it. I would highly encourage you.
But it is required.
It is for us to, right now we are a low fraud risk. So to go into the very low category and to get those points that would push us into that very low category, yes, that is required.
Let me make a plea for them. It is really well if we do this. Even though we're elected and they can't fire us, it's still a good idea. So. Okay.
Or can I ask also,
Yeah.
that annual fraud risk assessment, is that a requirement, or is that something the city has chosen to do
That is a requirement by
Okay.
the state auditor.
by the state auditor?
Yeah.
And then as far as the audit portion of that, that's,
They
They-
are actually required to test items
on there,
on
okay.
there. So
all right,
if I say I have a master's degree and I'm getting my CPE, I have to provide, if he asks for it, I have to be able to show that I do have a master's degree and I've gotten my CPE, which then, or continuing education, sorry, which then solidifies my certificate that I have. So, any other questions? Okay. So the audit process actually starts at the end of June. We'll start with inventory testing, and then the auditors come on site at the beginning of July. We then spend the next few months getting all of the books ready for them to then come and test. And they come beginning of November, and they're on site for about a week or two. And after they leave, I work on drafting this 200-page document, which is my baby during this time. And we go back and forth with drafts as they review and make sure that I've hit all of those national accounting standards and that they don't have any other questions that are coming up. And then we have to finalize the financial statements and get them uploaded by the end of December for bonding reasons, but also the state requires that as well. And then because the city receives a large amount of grants, we also have what's called a single audit. And that is a separate audit specific for our federally funded programs. And they will test a few grants in order to get coverage for those programs and make sure that those funds are being utilized specifically for those grant purposes. Okay. Just to touch base, we do have some interfund loans. And in these interfund, right now, we actually paid off one of the loans this past year. Administration is working on has a plan to pay off the bottom two that are up under the RDA ones. And then the general fund to airport one, that has an amortization schedule and is scheduled to be paid off by fiscal year 27. Administration is currently looking at a plan for the general fund to redevelopment agency interfund loan for $500,000. And they're hoping to get that paid off by fiscal year 27. And then the top two are interfund loans from utility funds. Those were loans given to these two specific RDA areas. And so we are currently analyzing and watching those RDA areas. And if there's excess funds at the end of those RDA areas, those will be applied to these interfund loans. But there is a chance that there won't be enough funds to pay those off. And if that is the case, when these areas expire, we would be coming to council to request that those be forgiven. There would be noticing required since they are utility funds. Any questions with those? Okay. For general fund balance, the city has fund balance in the general fund for fiscal year 25 of 58 million. Just noted that the unassigned fund balance, that's the part that is spendable and can be used for new uses. In this unassigned, in this unassigned fund balance, City Council has asked that we keep that, at least 20% of general fund revenues in fund balance. So the 27 million actually represents the required of the 5% that the state requires that we keep in fund balance of our general fund revenues. And then after taking that 5% out, that's how we calculate that we have at least that minimum of the 20% that City Council requires. We're actually sitting at about 21% as of the end of fiscal year 25. You'll notice the spendable restricted went down from fiscal year 24 to 25. That's where we account for our grants. So the ARPA funds were held in the spendable restricted. So that decrease was the spending of those ARPA funds.
Corley,
Yes.
I have a question. My mind doesn't move fast enough to capture those percentages that you shared. Can you go back and repeat those
Yes.
percentages, just because I think they're very important and I just want to be able to.
So the state of Utah requires that the cities have at least 5% of general fund revenues in fund balance. So 5% of general fund revenues actually would represent 5.3 million. So that was our 5% in fiscal year 25. And then City Council, your financial, what is it called? Principles, has asked that we keep 20% of general fund revenues in fund balance. And we are at 21%, which is where the other 22 million is. And I did nice round numbers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Corley, can I,
Oh, yes.
Jeff had,
Yes.
it's a total of 20.
Yes.
And then
so
this,
it's a total of 26, but we take in order to get to the 20, we take the 5% out first, and then to make sure that we have the 20. Does that make sense?
and then the state also has a maximum required, right?
Yes.
Or allowable, which is 30%, right? Or
35.
35%. Okay.
And so our finding last year, if you'll remember,
Right.
it was a good finding. Is there such a
We
thing?
earned more interest than we were. Anyway,
Better than about money.
Well, it's not a finding that I stress about. All the others I stress about.
can you talk to what the state requires if we fell to the 5% minimum? What is that? What's the significance? I think that's important to really maybe talk to is, and why the guiding principles are we'd like to be at 20%. You know, what are the implications of
So
falling to that?
from what I remember is, sorry, I'm looking to Lisa for a minute to make sure I'm
Lisa's
saying
gonna
that
let you go with
correctly.
it.
Yep. So if we were to ever fall below that 5%, we would need to cut services immediately.
Immediately cut, yeah,
Mhm.
expenses
And
to
get that back
get that
up
back.
in there. Yes.
Okay.
So it's not we'll fix this over the next fiscal year. It's immediately. We have to do that.
And what kinds of things could happen that might impact our fund balance to cause us to, you know, what sorts of things should we be concerned about that might, you know, we want to keep it at a healthy level, but you know, there's a reason, right?
Yeah. So I know as we went through COVID, for example, that no one knew what the economic turnout would be from that. And so administration took advice from the League of City and Towns at that time, and we went into conservative mode. And you can actually, this shows the graph over the past 20 years, and it actually helps explain it a little bit more. You can see that the fund balance did go up. A big part of that is the spendable restricted, which is the ARPA funds, but administration went into conservative mode for budgeting. We cut everything by 20% at that time. So we started cutting back in anticipation for that. So economic conditions could do that. Natural disaster could do that, etc. So
Is there anything left of our ARPA funds? Are they pretty well?
Yeah. So right now, our ARPA funds, the majority of those are being spent on the Canyon water line. That's actually our number. There's a few different funding sources for that. That's the first one because it does have to be expended by December of 26.
And they
So
still show up here even though they're earmarked for something.
yes,
Okay.
so they'll still show up here because, and we have to account for those separately. They're in a separate fund and they have their own account, and we actually have to report on those quarterly, what has been spent, what they've been spent on, what type of project it was spent on. And they had to be encumbered by December 25. Yeah. And so last year we made sure those were encumbered. And like I said, the majority of it was to that water line. And so there is still some of that. I don't have the exact amount. If you would like it, I can get it to your council.
I was just curious about the principle. I just want to make sure I
Yeah.
understood.
So where we got that money up front, it's a little bit different than the other grants that we receive, where those are reimbursable grants. Where the money was up front, we then put it in a spendable restricted.
Thank you.
Corley, I have one more question.
Yeah.
On your graph, the not quite doubled amount of those general fund balances from 21 to 22 didn't quite double, but it went up significantly.
Those were the
And
ARPA
yet-
funds.
Those were the ARPA funds.
Yep.
That's why that we see the red or
Yep.
orange color.
So CARES Act was yes. Yes.
Jeff, could we get you at a microphone? Thank you.
I'm going to chime in without a microphone, but if my memory serves, the city received $30 million during fiscal year 22 from the federal government of ARPA money. And originally it was supposed to be spent by the end of 2024, but Treasury Department realized they had certain states like Utah that weren't as impacted as much by the COVID response, kind of had overfunded. So they delayed it 2 years. And so that's why you'll start seeing the trend come back down. Sorry, thanks. You'll start seeing the trend come down because I think we had still the restricted, there's probably 16 million more going towards that Canyon project. And all those funds do need to be spent by December 31st of 2026. So that project should be completed by then.
So there, like I said, there are other funding sources in that Canyon water line. We have the WIFIA loan and the state revolving fund. Those are second. We're making sure that this is spent first. So, again, this is a representation of where that fund balance has come in the past 10 years, and that orangish reddish line portion is that spendable restricted, which you can see when the ARPA money came in and now as it's going out. So over the next few years, we'll see that get smaller. So, yep.
One other item I'd like to add is previous to 2016, the state maximum fund balance, unassigned fund balance was 18%. And then they raised it to 25%, and then they raised it again to 35%. And so since then, the city has kind of made a more conscious effort to maximize the amount of unassigned fund balance, because in a way, it's kind of your indirect rainy day fund. And so the state said, we should allow the cities to keep a little more in reserve as opposed to always having to use debt to finance an emergency. And so that's why you see the blue trending up a lot more, because of the state changing that maximum allowable from 18% to 25% to 35%. As Corley said, in 24, the city was actually over 35%
By like
by just a tiny bit, but we did have to report it as a finding that we were over the allowed maximum, which happened to quite a few cities from 21 to 24, because they were using a lot of that ARPA money they kind of gave a couple new council members. That's why I'm going a little more detail on this to help understand it. When the ARPA money came out, originally it was 3 intended purposes to be just for COVID response, but as that need kind of dissipated going into 22 and 23, the city still had kind of this extra money. So they kind of said, you can use the first 10 million of your money if you want for other types of projects to help kind of cover payroll costs. Because if you maybe you had a little less sales tax revenue during that period or other charges for services. So they kind of gave this $10 million to the cities to kind of spend on whatever they wanted. There was like 3 or 4 things that weren't allowed. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a couple years since we've had to test it. So we did have to test those funds that they still met the grant, but they kind of became more in a way a blank check. And so since we used that $10 million to kind of fund things that were normally funded through other revenues, it really buoyed up that unassigned fund balance for a lot of cities. And so we did, during that period of time, a lot of cities we audited were like, we're over that 35% threshold. So it was kind of something that happened, not just to Ogden City, it did happen to other municipalities.
So, and in fiscal year 25 was when Ogden City used the 10 million that he is discussing, and we used it for public safety wages and benefits minus retirement. So, the redevelopment agency fund balance. This, you'll notice in fiscal year 24, it went up significantly. That was due to the Wonder Block bonds that were taken out. And then it's now starting to drop as we've started spending on those bonds and getting that parking structure back up. So any questions on the RDA? Okay.
Just a quick just a reminder on how those bonds are secured.
I believe it's parking, nope, sales tax.
And then initially some BDO lease revenue on those, or is that?
Thanks. There were 2 sets of bonds. One was for the parking tower, and that was the MBA bond. And that was secured so you have a financing plan when you go bond, and then you have the security. The security for the MBA bonds, I'm having a hard time remembering what it was. I think it's the property. The property was the security, sorry. And the financing plan involved BDO lease revenue. The Wonder Block was sales tax TIF. And so sales tax secured those bonds, and the repayment was TIF and BDO.
Just some highlights from this past audit. Ogden City had capital asset investment of just under 110 million. A large portion of that is Marshall White Center, and then improvements as the construction and process of the Wonder Block. Our golf fund had positive cash balance. If you looked at the financials over the past 10 years, you'll notice how big of a accomplishment this is. And then we did have new debt we had our new market tax credit, which was done to get additional funds for the Marshall White Center. And then we had a small loan for the Forest Service building. And then we have our WIFIA and state revolving loan fund. Those are draw-based loans. So as we spend, we then submit draws and draw from there. So as I show the debt tables, the WIFIA and state revolving loan fund will actually be on the next slide. But you'll see those aren't very big right now because we only drew $50,000 in fiscal year 25. This is a representation of the long-term debt for governmental funds. And it shows as we're the balance that we held at the end of the year, as well as what the payments are for the next fiscal year. And then, yep.
In that last graph, could you please point out our ending balance is higher than the beginning balance? Can you please point out where those points of increase were at?
So let's see where the ending balance is higher.
Yes.
So the tax increment bonds, that was the Forest Service building loan, the addition of that. The new market tax credit We had the addition, and then the loans payable is, oh, that is for the Union Station land. We have a note payable for that, and we'll make payments of, I believe it's the 800,000.
But that represents the purchase of the
Yes.
Union Station.
Yes,
Right.
the land.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, Corley, and just that new market tax credit exercise that we went through was kind of an interesting financial escapade. It shows as debt, but it's not really debt, right?
correct. In a way, it's a circle.
Yeah,
Sorry, I had to draw it out so many times to understand it.
it was quite a flow chart that they presented to us.
Yes.
Yeah, but it
We
it
have
was-
liability, but
Yes.
we get reimbursed for that.
right. Okay, thank you, Lisa, because that was like $2 million, right? But it started out as a $10 million undertaking that benefited others in their tax situation, and for our participation, we got 2 million.
So, and that is actually set up as a separate entity on our books. It does have a different fiscal year end. It's a calendar year end. But as that goes on, you'll be able to see that in our financial statements. So, and then also in this, we do report compensated absences, which we have to estimate out, and net pension liability. So in the enterprise fund, there is the only additional debt was the one draw on the state loan of $50,000. That will go up as we exhaust those ARPA funds, and then we start drawing on the WIFIA and state revolving loan.
Corley,
Yes.
I have another question. And it goes back to that long-term liabilities on the previous slide. My question is that I would really like to see over the last 10 years what those balances have been, because it appears to me that there's been a significant investment into our community by the city. And those long-term debts today are significantly higher than what they were maybe 10 years ago. And part of my heart is very concerned about that. Just it skips a beat, honestly, because even though people say that these might be tough economic times, our city's been managed well, and the financials look great. And I'm not questioning that, but my concern is long-term, the sustainability of the direction that we're going and how we reduce that long-term debt over time, the plan to cover that. That's part of my concern. And so my question after that little preamble is that, are you concerned at all with those liabilities that you see at the bottom of the page there, that $219 million in long-term liabilities?
So, and maybe I need administration to answer this. I will say, so the pension liabilities and compensated absence, if you were to take those out, because that's like a vacation payable, sick payable, et cetera, and then your pension liabilities, that does bring you down under the 200 million, but we, before we're able to bond, we do work with our financial advisors, and I think we're to the point now where I don't know that there will be a lot more as big, because we've done some very big projects, and maybe I'm speaking incorrectly from administration's view, but I do know that we have legal limits that we actually have to stay under. And I believe, Jeff, did you pull that?
Yeah, in the ACFR, there's actually a table that shows what the maximum amount of debt the city could have. And at the end of 25, it was 45% of the legal limit. And the legal limit is 4% of what your total taxable value. Because essentially they're saying Well, if your debt burden gets too high, you're just going to levy more property tax to your citizens. And just to put that in comparison, at the end of 2022, the city was at 8%. And so there's been the really large investment in downtown Ogden. Obviously, that's where most of it is happening, just right around this area. And so, it was a large amount of bonds over the past 2 years. And so it's now it's like, okay, in the theory of taking out debt as a government, right, is that it's going to generate economic growth to help pay off those bonds over time.
Have a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So from my fellow constituents who follow the city budget, and there's several of them who contact me and they ask me these questions, their greatest concern is being able to afford to make the payments on the debt. And so I present that
So
as,
the city being able to afford to make the
yes,
payments on the
because of
debt.
these huge capital
yeah.
investments that we've made and the long-term debt that we've incurred. That is, in the some circles that I'm in that watch this, that is their big concern. So how do I answer them? How do I tell them where we're at financially? Well, thank you.
Thank you. I try really hard to answer all your questions the best I can.
Chair, I have a follow-up to that afterward too.
So I would not encourage us to get into a lot more debt. We can make those payments. When we bonded for the debt, we had a security and we talked about that. And then there was a financing plan. And we have a long history of BDO lease revenue. That was our financing plan. For the parking, it's parking revenue and BDO debt. We can very well afford this, but what that harms is your ability to appropriate money for capital projects.
I think I just was going to chime in on that I remember going through those conversations because those are massive investments and really generational type of things. One thing, Laura Lewis, our financial advisor, was very confident in the city's ability to do this, but also was very encouraged by the fact that the bond ratings that we received were the top levels. And so, which meant lower interest rates for the city, and it just really spoke to the well-managed financials of the city. And then I'm going to say it, and somewhere, Marcia might be saying, "Yay!" A 5-year financial plan would be phenomenal, right? If we had the ability to just project and look out in the next 5 years on all of these things, it really does help us. And I do get that, future capital projects may be restricted, but there are more than just future capital projects that we need to be looking at as a council. And that 5-year financial model or plan can really give it some insight as to where we're headed as a city and help us with the decisions that we're having to make.
Yep.
I'll just chime in real quick. I'm not like a bond expert. I'm literally just an accountant and auditor, but I will say that the city during 21, 22 in the low interest rate environment did refund older bonds at lower rates. And that lowered the annual debt service requirements of the city during that period of time, which then in a way allowed the city to say, hey, we can probably afford a little more debt service to make this big investment. But again, that not financial advice either, but.
So, all right, we kind of went over the enterprise fund, long-term debt. So every year the city applies for the certificate of achievement in financial reporting. This has additional requirements with it. We were awarded it on our fiscal year 24 annual report. And with this, it also provides more transparency and disclosure. As far as challenges for the upcoming year, new governmental accounting standards being implemented, continual grants, which our federal grants are amazing and they fund amazing things. They do come with a lot of reporting and other requirements. And then additionally, our airport cash balance, cash balance at the end of fiscal year 25 was negative $350,000 approximately. We do believe a lot of that was timing with getting refund or reimbursements for the terminal grant. Administration continues to watch that and then will provide support as if that cash continues to go negative. So, any other questions?
Any more questions? You guys have done a good job of asking them all along the way, but maybe there's
Yeah.
more. Okay, looks
Great.
good. Thanks, Carly.
Yeah.
All right, next we have our 2024-2025 financial audit report from Jeff Miles. You're okay there if you like it there. I think you can run the deal over here if you want.
I don't have a formal presentation, so
Okay.
we can just kind of talk through this. My name is Jeff Miles. I'm a partner with HBME over the Ogden City audit. And there was a list of questions here that council asked me to report on as part of our audit during the year. For new council members, I think it's important to iterate what an audit is and what an audit isn't. I think in a lot of public's mind, they view this as kind of like a performance audit that we're deciding if how the city's money was spent, if it was proper or the best way to spend the money, but that is not that's kind of more what's referred to as a performance audit, that somebody comes in, says, here's how the money was supposed to be spent, here's maybe the best way to spend it, and here's what the results were. But that's not the purpose of our audit. The purpose of our audit is to determine that the financial information that management is presenting to council and the public is accurately presented. And so that's generally the scope of our audit, to ensure that the information contained in here is presented accurately and appropriately in accordance with accounting standards. And a part of the audit is gaining an understanding of a city's internal controls. And as part of that audit process, we come out in August and we meet with Corley and Justin and the accounting team here, and we update our understanding of the controls to ensure that there's proper segregation of duties, which on that fraud risk assessment that Corley mentioned earlier, that's the number one way to gain points on that scale, is having good segregation of duties. And a city the size of Ogden has a nice, robust accounting staff to make sure we have proper controls around the cash receipting process, the cash disbursement process, payroll, those kind of key day-to-day transactions that occur at the city. And so we didn't identify any issues with the city's internal controls of how it handles financial transactions, and similarly with financial reporting. Similarly with that, kind of a key risk area is always journal entries, because that's where accounting systems work great and they're great at handling transactions, but usually where we find where errors occur is when the human interface is recording a journal entry. So we make sure it's important that you don't kind of have like a super user at the city, like one person that's posting journal entries and no one's kind of overseeing that, and ensure that if Corley's posting a journal entry, it gets approved by Justin. Conversely, if Justin's posting an entry, it gets approved by Corley. So little things like that, where you make sure you don't have one person that's kind of handling the entire process. So we felt that there's good controls in place to make sure that is happening at the city. So we do feel like there's good policies and procedures in place. Corley mentioned a little bit that a challenge is new accounting pronouncements. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board has made a lot of changes over the past 10 years. It's kind of slowing down a little bit, but some big changes were with how we handle accounting for leases, how we handle subscription agreements, GASB 68, which was kind of how we handle retirement plan accounting. And also there was a big change to how we calculate compensated absences at cities. And so there's a lot of big changes that happened over the past 5 years, and it's kind of slowing down a little bit. There's a couple initiatives out there that could change how these numbers get presented a little bit, but it's still kind of in a discussion phase more than an immediate thing that would impact the city. This is always my least favorite question to answer, but please give your opinion on the overall financial health of the city. I think Corley's presentation did a good job of showing, I think general fund balance is a great measurement of where a city stands. So that unassigned fund balance, you know, trying to maintain a buffer there. And I like the city's policy of trying to, you have that 5% minimum, but then you want an extra 20% buffer there. And I think that's a good goal to have as a city council to, you know, and the question was asked of, you know, what could result in having to kind of dip into that in, you know, the first, you know, Corley mentioned financial downturn because a significant revenue is sales tax revenue, right? And so if we had a big drop in sales tax revenue, that would result in kind of needing to immediately fund that from the unassigned fund balance. And so thankfully, you know, accountants, we tend to be a little more looking for storm clouds on the horizon. And so far, you know, everyone was really concerned in 2020, 2021. But it kind of actually led to a certain amount of economic expansion due to all the government money that was flowing through the economy. But you can definitely see from the chart that that's all that government funding is finally kind of funneling through. And so it could result in some future problems, you know, as that funding is slowing down at the federal level, which also then impacts what's happening amongst the citizens. So as of the end of 2025, I would say the city's in good economic health, especially the funds that have kind of always been the more, I don't know what the right term would be, but scrutinized funds like the golf fund and the airport fund that sometimes need a little assistance from the general fund. And so to see the golf fund performing well the last couple of years has been really good. And then I also know there's a lot of plans with the airport to try and bring in more carriers to help kind of buoy up the airport fund as well. But as of 25, I feel like every fund is in a better position than where it was when I think this was the 6th year I think 2020 was the first year that we audited the city. And so I think there's been a very positive trend in fund balance. I do think a lot of that is tied into the amount of federal funding that came in through those 5 years. So it's important that the city have good year-over-year revenue that matches up with the year-over-year expenses, because you never know when the federal faucet will get turned off or ramped up, you know. So it's important to make sure that our revenues that are more manageable are matching the expenses that the city incurs on a day-to-day basis. As far as the fund-to-fund loans, the city's in a better spot with those than when we first started the audit 6 years ago. And I think there's a better understanding there. We've described them better in the footnotes to the financial statements. They're all in conformity with the state requirements for fund-to-fund loans. And so it's a mechanism that if you have funds available internally, it's probably better to do it internally than always having to use external funding. But it is important to manage those, especially the ones within the redevelopment agencies, because that's kind of tied to this incremental tax. And sometimes it does, as Corley mentioned, it doesn't hit the projected revenue when we do a redevelopment area. And so those, in my opinion, those are the ones that need the most kind of oversight is the ones to the RDAs, and because it does have the potential that loan will need to be forgiven from. Where did we say those are from the general fund? I think one's general fund. They're from the enterprise fund. So yes, there'd have to be a little more. But that's kind of the benefit of a city that runs a lot of enterprise funds, because it's not that we're trying to generate a profit in an enterprise fund, but it can be, because we're trying to offer, cities offering all these services to the city or to its citizens. And it's not that we're doing it as a for-profit venture, but they do generate sources of revenue that can potentially benefit other parts of the city. Although generally an enterprise fund should just kind of be insular, just we're charging enough to the citizens to keep replenishing infrastructure. and the cost to administer those services. But occasionally there may be some excess revenue that can be, kind of lent out to other funds that may have a shortfall for a period of time. But as of the end of 25, feel that those interfund loans are being monitored well. But as they come closer to maturity, I think it's important for council to bear in mind, what may or may not be needed in the next 3 to 5 years to help service those, or if the decision needs to be made that, yeah, that's probably not going to get paid back. We're going to need to forgive that loan between the two funds. And then I think lastly, from a financial reporting standpoint, we didn't have any findings on the audit. State compliance, we did have the one finding where a budget wasn't formally adopted for the new market tax credit fund. So that's something that will be easily remediated going into fiscal year 26. And then we did have one finding on the federal single audit with the airport grant. The city didn't make the required reporting to the federal agency over that grant within the fiscal year. And so just the recommendation with that is the individual that is kind of seeking those funds also know all the requirements with the fund and make sure that we're maintaining compliance. I mean, it's not like, unfortunately for us, it's kind of a yes or no when we're auditing compliance. It's not like, oh, is that significant or not? And so it's just like, well, it didn't happen. It didn't really impact the grant, but it's still something that just needs to be occurring on an annual basis.
Was there any penalty on it?
No,
Just for the city?
no penalty.
It's just a flag that goes up.
At the flag.
Okay.
They could come back and say, hey, we might refuse future funding, but it wasn't, I don't know if you've heard anything back on that. This was kind of hot off the press in January, so maybe we'll have an update now.
So we have to upload our single audit to it's called the Federal Clearinghouse, and that gets reported to all grantors. This was an FAA grant. The FAA has since contacted us, and we have 30 days to reply. We just have to provide them a corrective action plan of how we'll prevent this in the future. This was actually, we didn't get any grant funds for the year, but we still had been awarded grants. We just hadn't expended them. So it was a zero report. And so we provided some education and we put some things in place so that will be prevented in the future. We'll write that up and send that to the FAA. If we don't respond within the 30 days, then yes, it can influence our future funding for those grants. So we're working on that response right now. And I actually will be back in 2 weeks to present on just the grants for the city. And I can give you an update at that time if you would like.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, any questions from council?
Any more questions for Jeff? I have a question. Yes. You went down that list of questions and I appreciate that very much. Question 4, you kind of answered. And the question 4 was, are there any recommendations for improvement? And you focused on a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, as an overview, any other recommendations you have as an auditor for city operations?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. Year one, when we came in 2020, there was some turnover in the accounting department, and we did have some verbal recommendations of things that could be improved as far as monthly reconciliations of certain accounts. But the honest truth is, over the past 5 years, we've had very few journal entries during our audit, which is kind of the key indicator that things are functioning well. And so I think it's a real credit to the accounting team here that it's on the financial side, it's been a very, very clean audit. Like I don't know of anything I would come in and tell Justin or Corley how to do their job better, honestly. Like I think they do a very good job of administering and managing and overseeing a city of this size. There's a lot going on at Ogden City. As Corley pointed out, like $109 million of capital improvements during 25. Like that's a lot of transactions to capture of that section alone. I think the city reports about 30 different funds, which is probably the most or close to the most of the cities that I audit. And I think they do a phenomenal job of tracking all that. And like I said, the main thing is just the budget for the new market tax credit. And that, I think that was just such a new transaction to everybody that it's like, oh, wow, we got bonds there. We needed to budget for that initial expenses that were incurred with that. And it was also kind of understanding the scope of what that was, because it's a separate entity from the city. And so after fiscal year end, it's when we kind of sat down and determined like, oh, this will need to be presented in the city's financial statements, is it's called a blended component unit. It's a separate legal entity, but it's so intertwined with the city that it gets presented in these financial statements. And so just kind of, you know, I guess maybe the recommendation is as we're undertaking new types of projects like that, is you know, get ahead of it a little earlier in the game of thinking of all the ramifications that might come about when we're entering into a new type of, you know, transaction or something of that nature.
Just a quick comment. I just want to say thank you to HBME, and Sean and I are on the audit committee, and we have two excellent certified public accountants as part of that committee, Patrick Munson and Jared Stevens. And so thanks to those guys for the work they do. They're the professionals, and Sean and I are there to be with them. So
We represent the city council.
we represent the council, yep.
Mr. Chair, I do think it's appropriate for us to echo what Jeff has said and just give a shout out and thanks to our city administration for the excellent job they do with the accounting. And, you know, just a layman's observation, the two recommendations that Jeff brings out to me are not huge issues. More maybe oversights and easily corrected. So I think to Coralie and Justin and Lisa, we just want to say thanks, because it's nice to be able to depend on that kind of expertise and quality in the way that they run things. So we're very fortunate. So thank you.
Next item on our agenda is for rezone at 1425 Kingston. Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's good to be with the council members today. So this item we have before you is for rezone. We're going from one type of single family zoning to another type, and we'll get into that. This is 1425 Kingston. It shows the property and kind of its situation. It's got multiple frontages, 36th Street, Polk Avenue, and Kingston Drive. It's made up of multiple parcels of land that had recently had a church on those multiple properties, which was recently demolished. The property all functioned together, though they were all separate parcels of land. With that unique situation where there's a split of zoning through the property, where the north portion is an R110 zone and the southern portion an R18. And so the proposal is to be able to take this vacant land in the single family neighborhood and be able to develop some single family homes, which we get super excited about in planning, because there's not a lot of opportunity for single family homes to grow in the city. We're pretty built out, and for people in more rural cities, see them every day. It's a rare occurrence for us. So looking at trying to get a single family development under one zoning, so there's no split zone properties when we create these lots. So the intent is to have all the properties zoned R18, and this would accommodate 10 single family home lots, similar size and characteristics of the existing built out single family homes in the area. Yep, I'm gonna show it. Okay, sorry. You're stealing my thunder. It's all good. It's all good. So this kind of shows that layout. The ones highlighted in yellow, those are properties that already have the R18. The intent is to take those 3 parcels to the north and have them be zoned R18 as well. So looking at the community plan, the plan is Mount Ogden. It definitely has some support for preserving existing single-family homes, the single-family nature of the community. And that is the intent with this zoning, is to create, repurpose a property that going from an institutional church use to single-family home use, and to develop it in such that lots are similar to the established developed neighborhood. There's you go. This is what you've been chewing for. So this is showing a proposed layout. And the petitioner who is here today has had several meetings with our concept review team, which is an awesome meeting we have every Wednesday morning with everyone does all the reviews of our different departments. And we've had to play with different designs to see first, could we make the zoning work and create lots that would follow the established zoning line, which was really difficult to do. At the end of the day, was it came with trying to get road access off of Polk, which was problematic, and 36 as well. Traffic engineer felt this was the better approach coming off Kingston. So the intent would be having a cul-de-sac that could provide some access to some single family lots. Some of those would be fronting through the cul-de-sac, and some would have some frontage off 36, Polk, and Kingston. And so there are some challenges that have to be overcome as well. We have existing Rocky Mountain power lines that come through the property. They'll have to be dealt with, all kinds of other challenges, but those issues we would take on as part of the subdivision plat process. Right now, we're just trying to get the zoning in place to be able to create these lots and have a uniform zoning designation. So what's the difference? Let's look at R110 and R18. R110 is our largest single family zone, which compared to some other cities I've learned is actually not that big, but 10,000 square foot lot is our big single family lots. R18 is just the step below that, 8,000 square foot lots. You can see they have pretty similar setbacks. All in all, it's just a smaller lot size, which when we look at the surrounding developed lots in the area, they are comparable to an R18 zoning. So with those understandings and the situation of the property, the commission had voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the proposed rezoning to R18. That's what I have.
Okay, so question I have, I can't read the square footage on those, on that.
Yeah, so, and I wish I could do it off memory. Some of them actually meet the R110 standards.
That was kind of my, they all are, they look like they're all corner lots the way they're
Yeah,
situated, so they all have to
yeah.
be at least 9,000 square feet.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they do, so,
Yeah,
okay, that's
yeah.
really all I cared about.
Yeah, they're meeting the requirements. In fact, they're exceeding it, where it's almost, you could say, well, we could maybe make those R110, but at the end of the day, really being on a corner in the intersection, the provisions we have in the general plan would support
Great.
going to an R18.
Okay. Any other questions for Joe?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Joe. Great presentation. My question is, a lot of that area on 36th Street has become rental properties.
Yes.
Is there any contingency plan that these be homes or they be owner occupied for any period of time, or?
So the intent, and I know I've worked with the petitioner before, and they're very passionate about making more owner occupation opportunities in the city. And so that is definitely the intent. Now, this zone, the single family zone, would not allow for any kind of multifamily development. No, they wouldn't allow for townhomes or anything, even under any kind of PRUD. We just don't have the acreage to do any kind of development like that on this site. So really the only use we could see occurring, it could be a school, a church like it was, or single family homes, parks, a museum, and a library. I think I've got a few, I think I got most of the uses. There's not many in the single family zone. But yeah, that's really what it's limited to. As far as requiring them to be owner occupied, we wouldn't have that with the rezone, the R1 zoning. That would have to be required with like a development agreement requirement for a single family rezoning. And really, we've only been doing that with multifamily rezoning projects that you have townhomes and that they have, ownership capability. And with that owner occupancy for a time period under development agreement. But that isn't what's proposed with this. They would be individually owned lots, hopefully would be owner occupied, but could potentially be rented single family homes.
What about the possibility of having a basement apartment, which becomes a rental apartment?
Sure. So the only option that there would be with that is what's called an accessory dwelling unit, or ADU. And as it stands right now, part of the property on the north of the lot, use technology here. So this northern portion is actually in an area that excludes the use of ADUs right now. That's something we're looking at with the general plan update to remove that restriction. But the southern properties right now would be allowed to do an accessory dwelling unit. And the key importance with accessory unit, or ADU, is they have to be owner occupied properties. So the owner of the property has to live on the property as their primary residence to be able to create that scenario.
I think just to add to what Joe said, I think this petitioner is the second one in our city that took advantage of the R2S zoning, which kind of indicates their mission, what they're trying to do. So I'm pretty happy about that.
That's the property off 9th Street on.
Custer, Chester, I think it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah. That all questions for Joe? Okay, great.
Kumbaya, here we go.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
When are we gonna see this on the agenda, Glenn?
If there aren't any concerns, we'll go ahead and have this noticed for the 17th.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to
February.
ask the petitioner a question.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
And a question that I have is the motivation on building these lots. Are you going to be the developer and the builder, or what is your intent? Quite possibly.
My name's Gary Cannon. I'd like to extend a welcome to the newer faces around the table, and also the not so newer, I didn't say older. As a lot of you are aware, I am also a public servant. I serve on the planning commission in the town of Riverton, Utah for 8 years. And so I appreciate the volunteer time you put in. Our intent would be to build these out. If a builder came in who felt like they could provide a better product in a more ample period of time, we are not. We're real estate brokers. Combined experience of over 80 years, and we want to do a good product. When we come in and Joe knows this, and I appreciate your comments as well. We do want to do a good product. We want to walk away and say we did good for the town of Ogden and the surrounding area. In fact, interestingly enough, we just made an offer on an old LDS church way on the East Bench. So you may be seeing us here in the next few months as well on that. And it may be another church comes in and buys it. Churches are kind of a hot item right now. There's people, and it's the LDS churches, people are standing in line to buy them to do another type of a church there. So that's an interesting thought I never thought I'd see, but I'm open to your questions. There was actually, if we would have squeezed that, there was room to maybe get one more lot on there. We didn't think that that was the right thing to do. It would have it would have made it not as good a product. And what we're finding, and you need a lot of you've heard me say this already, the average first-time home buyer now, their age is 40 years old. That's your kids, that's your grandkids. Imagine owning your home at 40 years old. That's kind of scary. And we're just trying to provide, you know, and to answer your question, if somebody were to buy one of those lots and build a house on it, these houses will probably, if you take the cost of a lot and times it by 3 and 3.5, that's what your retail price is. So these houses will probably end up somewhere between $600,000 and $750,000 just based on what the cost of construction is right now. And if you put a full mortgage on that, the rental in that area would not meet the payment, and you could make more money keeping it in a CD in the bank or another type of investment. So a lot of thought goes into those type of things before we don't really come in and try to change it to a zoning. I'll tell you something I was proud of, and this is a lot of experience speaking, and those of you who were at the planning commission meeting, I was so proud when I walked out of that meeting. I think we had 5 of the neighbors. We unsolicited come up to the podium and thanked us for this product. I have never gotten like unsolicited. I don't know these people, and there was a lot of gratification in that. So I hope I just wanted to take a minute and let you know that we are sincere about and Rick, my business partner on this, he lives in Ogden, and he's very proud. He's on the planning commission as well. He's very proud of what we present to the city. I'd answer any questions if you have any.
We are running a little short on time.
Yes, I was there at 3. I thought it was at 3 today, so and I still got to drive back through traffic. So
Yeah. Well,
if you have no questions, I appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to working with you.
Okay, next item is our administrative update. We've got our CIO. Oh, I guess we've got Justin. Can you do this in 12 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, council. I'm here to talk to you and give you an update of what we know on our solid waste, what's happening with the Weber County Transfer Station. So we, back in January 2024, about 2 years ago, the city entered into an agreement with the county to take services of our solid waste. At that time, that agreement, it should expire at the end of this year, calendar year, December 2026. We also have an agreement currently with what's called the Ogden Transfer Station. That's out on Midland Drive. That is who we take our recyclable materials to, is the Ogden Transfer Station. There's going back, been a little history there. Before the Ogden Transfer Station, it was a different facility that we took our recyclables to. There was some issues that we found out that our recyclables weren't actually being recycled, so we stopped going to them. We had taken our recyclables to Davis County for a little while until we recently, probably over a little over a year or something, have had another agreement with the Ogden Transfer Station, and that's where we take our recyclables. Now, with the waste that goes to the county from municipalities, Ogden City is somewhere between 33 to 38% of the waste at any given time. And when it comes to solid waste, tonnage matters. So with the county and with the Ogden Transfer Station, so recently the county at the end of this year have had some discussions in the solid waste committee where they were losing some of their commercial waste. They're concerned about being able to.
We can hear you in there.
Okay. Is that okay now? Okay. So we, I was talking about tonnage. We take about anywhere from 33 to 38% of the county's waste. Commercial haulers have since been leaving the county and have been going to the Ogden transfer station with their commercial waste. And so the county's worried about being able to operate and the cost of the operation. So back in December, early December, we, in one of the WACOG meetings, it was discussed that the cities needed to sign a new agreement, and needed to do so quickly to be able to show our commitment to the county if the county wanted to continue running a transfer station. And because of the amount of trash that we take there, we are by far the more than double than the next closest municipality. Single-handedly, if we discontinue going to the county to take our waste, that would probably shut down the county transfer station. So we didn't at that time bring anything. We felt it was rushed, and it really didn't follow the cooperative agreement that we had signed back in 2024. Since that time, the county, on December 23rd, 2025, sent us a letter of a notice of termination of an interlocal agreement. And basically what this letter says, and summing this up, is that they're giving us a 6-month notice that with an effective date of June 30th, to terminate the agreement. With what they are doing is actively engaged in good faith discussions intended to maintain continuity of service, and it is their sincere hope that these efforts will allow us to rescind the notice of termination prior to the effective date of June 30th, 2026. Since this letter, though, we have not received any other form of communication from them. So we are actively waiting to hear from them on that. Also, I have had the Ogden transfer station representatives reach out to us, and I consider them a partner because we do take our recyclables to them. And they do a really good job in recycling the way they should. So, and we are waiting to kind of hear back that we have an option to take it to the Ogden transfer station. But we also were waiting to hear what the county is proposing for the cost too, because we want to make the best decision that's going to be for the Ogden City residents. One of the things we want to make sure that we have, though, is that our residents are able to take their household waste somewhere. And so that's something we want to make sure that continues. So if we stay with the county, fantastic. If we need to transfer to the Ogden, that works as well. But I think the intent right now is we're waiting to hear back from the county on the costs that they feel like they can run the county transfer station for.
You did good. I think there's a couple of things I'm on that committee. I haven't been in a meeting for a little while, but one of the things that I think is a consideration is the idea if we do what if we abandon the county transfer station because we get all of everything we want from the Ogden transfer station, and well, I guess the other communities, our neighboring communities, will also get something like that too, I would assume. Is that?
Yeah, they would need to go negotiate their own, but yes, if we left the county, we would essentially be making the decision for the rest of the municipal
And I think
government.
we just want to make sure that, I think one of the considerations is that there remains some competition that keeps everybody honest. And I don't, I met with, Robinson, right? That's who it is.
Yeah, essentially it's Robinson Waste that owns
and I think they're, they really would like to take care of us, but, and I don't see any real issues there, but it's just, I think we want to make sure that that everybody's services are maintained, so we don't end up with other communities junk just dumped in our community somewhere.
Correct.
That would be bad. That would be awful. So those are all part of the considerations and, I guess it's ongoing. I guess the county is saying they're gonna make some kind of a decision by March 15th. Is that what I heard yesterday?
I believe that's, yes, that's
Yeah,
what I understand.
okay. So hopefully more to come in a month and a half.
Yeah, and I also want to just let everybody on the council know that we're not going to get stuck not having a place to take our solid
Right.
waste. We're different than the rest of the municipal governments in the county because we have our own refuse collection system. So we go out and collect our waste and transport it. And because of the amount we can do that at a savings, I think, compared to other communities. So, however, with our agreement that we have with the Ogden Transfer Station to take recyclable material to them, we also have as part of that agreement that we could take waste to them. However, we've signed an agreement with the county to take it to the county. However, if that's rescinded, we are able to almost immediately go there. And I've had discussions with them of making sure that our residents have access to take their waste there as well.
So I'm hearing Mr. Heyer say that it's important that we have some competition and that we hold on to a local facility for a number of reasons. With that said, is there any reason we aren't reaching out to the county to find out where they're at with their forthcoming plans for our consideration?
We actively talking to the county. We were anxious to know too. They just haven't been able to give us, they're trying to figure out making sure that they can secure a dump site, because they just get it, collect it,
Right,
then they
move
haul
it.
it, and dump it at a different site. So there's a lot of different things that they're trying to figure out to make sure that it's viable going forward. Now, that being said, I believe in one of the WACOG meetings, they actually stated the number that they have in the account for their operation, and it was a 4 something million, I think. $3 million,
Yeah, $3 million.
almost 4. And so it's not like there's not funding that they have accounted for in an operation fund that they couldn't still operate it. They just don't want to run that all the way to
Right.
empty.
Do you know if, where their negotiations are with, Republic? That was one of the issues that they were dealing with.
I have not heard. And so that's one of the things I'm expecting to hear.
I think that has to happen before this March 15th thing.
I know that they're actively been, and even prior to the WACOG meeting, they said that they are actively meeting with Republic, discussing with them, because that's the landfill site. But yeah.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for Justin? Okay, thank you. Council business or council comments? Okay, well,
Real quick, I know we are short on time. A lot going on in the legislative session, record number of bills, of course. There's a lot of discussion about property tax, and in our league meeting on Monday, spent a lot of time talking about different substitutes and different aspects of that. So I think there's still a lot more to come there, but it's just, definitely a important topic. And then I don't know, Mayor, if you have any information on the other issue that I kind of keyed in on, was the WUI maps and the wildland urban interface, and what kind of an impact that might have with Ogden. And so, but yeah, there's a lot going on, and so right now it's just kind of monitor and watch, and we've tried to provide comment and on the different things.
So on the WUI thing, I did have a chat with Chief Slater, and
Okay.
he said that he has learned that we will not fall within the bounds of the WUI fees and mitigation and whatnot and so on. So we're off the
Pretty good
hook
job.
with
Okay.
that, according to the chief.
The chief.
Yep.
Okay,
Great.
lots going on.
We got to put you on the agenda through the session, just to make that report. You and, Alicia, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, exactly.
Just a quick reminder about Thursday's meeting. The meeting starts at 5:30. If you want to come a little bit early to mingle and eat, you're certainly welcome to.
Thanks for that. Okay, we'll be in your, meeting in the other room in a minute.